Right here. Is that okay? Yeah.
Perfect. Oh, yeah, there is a book.
Yeah. Oh no, we have. Well, there's the outline.
And the
Oh,
book.
yeah, I guess we already had a book. Just put it back there. And you know what? Because you're speaking in the middle there, I think the easiest thing is for me to do this part, and then you'll do that part. And then you didn't want to do "We Remember" them, right?
No, but I might do it towards the end, because it's just nice. But we'll see.
Do you want to start off with anything? Any of my toe?
Oh, sure, I could do that.
Yeah. Why don't we start off with a little bit? Oh, nice.
הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. Join me. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב. יא לה 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 לה. הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב. יא לה 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 לה. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד.
Those words from the Psalms are so important. We sing them all the time, how grateful we are to be together. And it's really the foundation of any community, to gather. We gather in happy times. Some of us came from a wedding recently. We had an adult B'nai Mitzvah, and there was a confirmation class over at Beth Zion. And those are wonderful occasions. But we also gather to be together, to mourn, and to celebrate, and just to be human together. And that's what we're here today. We're so grateful here at Congregation Shir Shalom to host Temple Beth Zion, Temple Bethel in Niagara Falls, as well as Congregation Chavarah. And this has been an important service in our community for many years, just to come together on the holidays, to be able to do that together. All of us that have lived in the Buffalo area know every family is interconnected with one another. No matter how far apart, isolated you think you are, we are all connected here. And that's why you got to be careful what you say. So we say, I've already talked to Cantor about this, we don't say Shabbat Shalom today. So every time you want to say Shabbat Shalom or Good Shabbos, just get it out of your system. Say it now. We say Chag Sameach or Good Yontif, right, in the old way. So I'm also really grateful to have Rabbi Sharon Sobel here. She's leaving town in a little bit, so we're really very blessed to have had her here in the Buffalo area for a year and a half, and grateful to have her as a colleague for the future as well. And we know that Buffalo will always be a home to her, and we hope that she comes back. It's near Toronto. They'll be celebrating Rabbi Sobel at Temple Beth Zion next weekend on the Friday night, and so we wish her just a wonderful mazel in her new journey as she proceeds outside of the area. We are going to be focusing on the Yizkor service, and you can see around the room also we have all the lights lit. Some of those lights maybe belong to you or to people that you know, and we light them up just like they do in Hollywood, but the people that we remember as a way of saying, we've got you. We will continue to remember and celebrate your life. And we'll have an opportunity to do that today, not only to honor the people that died in this past year, but in years past, those closest to us that we want to remember. And we're grateful to have you in attendance, but also those that are joining us virtually as well. And I also want to say Dr. Ellen Franke sends her regards. She unfortunately was a little ill this morning, and we'll be reading the names from Temple Bethel, though. So we are going to begin. I'll turn it over to my colleague.
Chag Sameach. We'll begin on page 575. That's okay, we're good. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination. I'm going to invite everyone to join with me. And life is a journey from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength, or strength to weakness, and often back again, from health to sickness, and back, we pray, to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking back or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey stage by stage a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is the beginning, and death a destination, but life is a journey from birth to death to life everlasting.
Page 576. Psalm 23. Mizmor David, Adonai Robi, lo achsar, b'nadeshe yad b'tzeni, amem menuchot yenahaleni, nashir shover, yancheni, v'magret tzedek, למען שמו, גם כי ילך בקצר מוות, לא יירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך ינחמוני, תערוך לפני שולחן נגד סוררי, דשנת בשמן ראשי, כוסי רוויה, אך טוב וחסד ידפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים.
Please join with us in the English at the bottom of 576. A Psalm of David. Adonai is my shepherd, I lack nothing. God makes me lie down in green pastures. God lead me to the waters and places of repose. God renews my life. God guides me in right paths that fits God's name. Though I walk through the valley of deepest darkness, I feel no harm, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You spread a table before me in full view of mine enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My drink is abundant. Only goodness and steadfast love shall pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Adonai for many long years. And let's turn to page 579. We're going to read the English of Zelda's wonderful poem, and we can do this responsively. Each person has a name. We each have a name given by God, given by our father and our mother. We each have a name given by our stature and smile, given by our attire. We each have a name given by the hills and given by the walls. We have a name given by the stars and given by our friends. We each have a name given by our sins and given by our yearning. We each have a name given by our enemies and given by our love. We each have a name given by celebrations and given by our work. We each have a name given by the seasons and given by our blindness. We each have a name given by the sea and given by our death.
So Rabbi Lazarus Klein began by pointing out that all of the lights on the Yizkor wall are lit, illuminating every name in this room. And we just read that beautiful and haunting poem by the Israeli poet Zelda, that every single one of us has a name. We're given many names. We're known by many different names. And the parsha for this past Shabbat is the beginning parsha from Bamidbar that enumerates, counts all the people, the men of fighting years, and lists the names, troop by troop. We're told, if you can remember the name, count everybody one by one, individual, we will not be an empty breath. If you can remember somebody's name, no matter how long ago they lived, their life can be filled with meaning and value. We come together this morning to celebrate Shavuot and to recite Yizkor, to remember. And this is our time when we gather to give meaning to our memories, the memories that surround us and haunt us, sustain us and embrace us. And last night, just before I lit my Yizkor candles, I was practicing Torah for my nephew's bar mitzvah, which is in 2 weeks. And a piece of paper fell out of my tikkun, the book that contains the Torah text. And it was a list that my mother made maybe 15 years ago. And the list had my sister's name on it, listing the things she wanted my sister to have in case my mother died. Now, my mother died 12 years ago, 10 weeks after my father died. And her handwriting is so evocative of her. It felt as if she were there in the room with me. But then again, I was using my mother's tikkun. Whenever I use something that belongs to my mother, or I see her name written on something, I surround myself with memories of my parents and my grandparents who are no longer alive. And I bring them into the room with me. My 4 brothers and my sister and I, we talk about my parents all the time. And I was sharing this story with one of my congregants last night whose younger sister just died 2 weeks ago and whose grief is sitting with him so close, like a jabbing, stabbing pain. And it's hard to understand that that pain of loss will always be with him, but the edges will be less sharp over time. When I eat food prepared from my family recipes, when I use objects that used to belong to my mother or father or my grandparents, I smile now. When we talk about the fact that my 2 young nephews are going to become bar mitzvah, we know that my parents are kvelling because my siblings are doing something that would have been meaningful to my parents. We know that our parents are with us in spirit, even though they are not here physically. And I'm sure that each of you who is sitting with us here this morning has your own memories of your loved ones who are no longer alive. And this is our time for evoking those memories, for giving life to those names that are lit up on the wall. Because it is those memories that will help sustain us and nurture us. And I'd like to share the following brief reflective piece about the power of memory, written by writer Carolyn Woodwell. And it's very brief. 6 months after my grandfather died, she wrote, "My grandmother told us she wanted to be buried beside him after all. I was born in Goffstown, New Hampshire," she reminded us regularly. "That's where my people are, and I want you to take me over there and bury me with him." "Okay," her 4 grandchildren would say, "we'll take you there." 60 years into their marriage, my grandfather would listen silently. For all the time I knew them, my grandparents lived on a bucolic piece of Maine farmland that had come down through my grandfather's family. My grandmother never learned to drive, so my grandfather took her over to her church, the Episcopal Church, on Sunday morning and sat in the car at the curb reading. And she went to church for far more than religion. She went for a chance to dress up, to see people, to shed the isolation of her life, and to remind herself that she was distinct and separate from her husband. I know she yearned for more than the path she wore, between the washing machine and the stove, a dusting of flour on her face. "Well, tell us about the world," she would say, sitting down at the kitchen table. She would marvel at the ease with which my sisters and I flew back and forth to college, used computers, made our way around the globe. My grandfather's family had a plot in the cemetery behind his church. They are all buried there under a huge maple tree at the intersection of 2 walking paths, in order of names and dates, spelling out the hardships of their lives. Mothers who died in childbirth, replaced by new wives who raised children who were not their own. But my grandmother had a story of her own, hardships that had not been adequately appreciated. A father who died when she was 3, someone she never really knew but loved anyway. A mother left alone with 3 small children, and the stepfather who raised them. The sister and brother she had not seen in years, and so she let us know that in the end she was going home. After my grandfather died, my grandmother was the first to notice that my sisters and I made a habit of stopping at his grave to say hello. She was the first to see we were building a community with our ancestors. Then one day, she announced that she thought she could be buried in the family plot after all. She wanted visitors. She wanted to be part of the family. It was only as her ashes were lowered into the ground in the cold light of that May day that I realized everything. The loneliness, the fear, the dilemma of her choice. A choice that ensured her children and grandchildren would stay in touch. A choice that acknowledged that women lose their own stories in bringing their children's stories to life. I felt her overwhelming need to go back to her own story in death. Her story is my story, is every mother's story. Mothers desperate to be near their own mothers as life grows short, yearning to end life as they began it, folded into the warm, loving arms of the one who brought them into the world. And now I stand at her grave. I hear her voice, I smell her cooking. My memories all take place on the farm. So I am careful to reach back through the years to her mother and her mother before that. Women I never knew, but I do know so well. Women who loved in many places, women who had to choose as they said goodbye to life. I run my fingers over her name. It's okay, I said. It's okay. We are all here. So today, my fellow congregants, on this Chag HaBikurim, this festival of first fruits, we too are all here. Philip Roth once wrote, "You mustn't forget anything. To be alive is to be made of memory. If a person's not made of memory, they're not made of anything." So on this time of Yizkor, we remember our dead to show that we are all here, and so are our beloved dead. We have grown up and arrived, and in order to be truly alive, we enable our loved ones to remain part of us, even though they have parted from us. And as adults, we learn how to cope with the loss and the pain, and to enable them to be here with us. Our spiritual life does not only consist of reactions to the present and hopes for the future, but also what we can recall in our minds and hearts of what has been. So as we approach this moment of Yizkor, let us relive our memories of those whom we loved and who we still do love, but who are more past than present, except for now. Yizkor is a ritual of retrieving and retelling to ourselves the details, the moments of meaning and character. There can be no accident to what memory calls up now. And Yizkor, as a ritual of remembering, brings us closer to loved ones, closer to our shared past, and closer to God, God who sustains us with our memories by giving us that gift of memory, by enabling us to keep through our actions and aspirations, our deeds of love, our deeds, our blessings, and by saying all their names out loud. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may this be God's will. Chag Sameach.
We're going to have an opportunity now for our own private memorials to remember those names. It's on page 580. If it's your custom to rise, take a couple minutes to reflect on the people that you're thinking about today.
page 581. We'll continue responsively by paragraph. I used to be part of you, belong to you, the extension of your being, but now you live within me, are the spark of my consciousness. I used to be part of you, protected by your presence, by your light. But now the time is mine, and alone I must be more than myself. Your child has become your heir, has become you.
We're going to turn to 582. At this point, it's one of the hardest duties we certainly have as clergy members to read the names. It's a great responsibility to carry the burden of remembering not just our own losses, but our communal losses. I want to begin with the list from Temple Bethel in Niagara Falls. They're remembering Ralph Horowitz, Miriam Sauber Schaefer, Selma Sauber Mann, Samuel Gelfand, and Mary Jo Santella, all who passed in this last year. For Congregation Shir Shalom, we are remembering Laura Alcala Hess, Sally Louise Anderson, Lee Applebaum, Rachel Battisti, Alvin Bendis, Virginia Bergman, Judith Berman, Gloria Berzon, Arthur Bloom, Sevi Brekiak, Julius Brodsky, Bambi Brody, Pauline Brummer, Michael Berwick, Andrew Cahill, Myron Carroll, Rosemary Chow, Alec Cohen, Barry Cohen, Lee Cohen, Rebecca Cohen, Lynn Converso Miller, Charles Culata, Michelle Davis, Peggy DeLong, Eric Duval, Arthur Dezelke, Doris Epstein, Herb Falk, Lisa Fellman, Milton Freudenheim, Levy Reed Gardman, Alan Gordon, Thomas Gordon, Alan Grass, Gretchen Gross, Ron Groth, Linda Herman, Sylvia Hirschfeld, Laura Hess, Howard Hilfstein, Stephen Janis, Robert Caton, Peter Q, Gerda Weissman Klein, Kenneth Nightinger, Morton Korn, Seaman Kramer, Leslie Kramer, Marilyn Kriegel, Rosemary Levine, Jeanette Lowe Johnson, Diane Lynch, Sheldon Macon, Carol Macon, Dr. Robert Milch, Henry New, Ida Nevler, Carol Olashansky, Ruth Palenker, Norma Perlman, Lorraine Pleskow, Jenny Pohl, Sheldon Reingold, Jean Rothstein, Mary Jo Santella, Dorothy Shackman, Richard Cerns, Doris Sirota, Liana Shaman, Peter Simon, Carol Sirota, Gary Sloan, Sherry Sloanham, Howard Smallin, Yvonne Stocker, Inga Strauss, William Truhaft, Meyer Tubin, Lillian Ungerleider, Eric Weiner, Mindy Weinman, Sarah Weinstein, Rose Weisbrod, and Annabelle Weiss.
And from Temple Beth Zion, we are remembering Sanford Beckman, Alvin Bendez, Andrew Cahill, Marvin M. Cohan, Harold L. Cohen, Mildred Daniels, Charles Garfinkel, Claire L. Gorelick, Shirley Jill Lombardo, Gretchen Gross, Rochelle Glick Greif, Rochelle Marks, Dr. Robert A. Milch, Vanessa Pearlstein, Dr. Stephen M. Piver, Sylvia Rosen, Bruce I. Sanders, Edith Schaefer, Sandra Shapiro, Herb Siegel, Jonathan Snitzer, John D. Travis, Mindy Weinman, Temple Beth Zion Cantor, Cantor Norman Rose, our past rabbis, Rabbi Israel Aaron, Rabbi Isaac N. Cohen, Rabbi Samson Falk, Rabbi Joseph L. Fink, Rabbi Dr. Martin L. Goldberg, Rabbi Louis J. Copold, Rabbi Isaac Schoenbrunn, and our past presidents, Richard Ament, M.D., Simon Bergman, Henry Brock, Jeremy Cohen, Donald Day, Joseph N. Desmond, Stanley G. Falk, Milton H. Friedman, Arnold B. Gardner, Sigmund Hofeller, Leopold Kaiser, Harry L. Lehman, Saul J. Levy, Sigmund Levin, Leopold Marcus, Joseph B. Mayer, Abraham Oppenheimer, Lauren D. Racklin, Saul Rosenau, Harold S. Russlander, Howard T. Saperston, Leo J. Schwartz, Joan Ellis Shatkin, Morris S. Tabor, Frederick Ullman, Eugene M. Warner, Henry Weil, Herman Weil, and Mayor Weil. Zichronam livracha. May their memories be for a blessing.
We'll rise for the memorial prayer.
Page 582. Mare Rachamim, Shokin Pamabrabim, Amsei Menucha, Nechodam, Takakafe Hashekina, Im Kerushim Utuhorim, Ve'anuchu b'shalom hamishkava v'ramah. Amen.
Let's read together in the English on 582. Fully compassionate God on high, to our loved ones who have entered eternity, grant clear and certain rest with you in the lofty heights of the sacred and pure, whose brightness shines like the very glow of heaven, source of mercy, forever enfold them in the embrace of your wings. Secure their souls in eternity. Adonai, they are yours. They will rest in peace. Say Amen. You may be seated. We're going to turn to the Mourner's Kaddish, and we're going to read our list from the anniversaries from years past. Maybe if Temple Bethsaida, you want to go first? Oh, yeah, from the yard site list. So from Congregation Shir Shalom, this week, at this moment, we're remembering Samuel Axelrod, Bernice Baker, Robert Baker, Edith Ballin, Nathan Berman, Anita Breger, Louis Bush, Martha Cantor, Barry Cohen, Beverly Cohen, Sidney Cohen, Peter Covey, Gertrude Kramer, Gertrude Goldberg, Frank E. Gordon, Delutza Gutman, Carl D. Haber, Louis Jacob Haas, Martin Habenstrock, Blanche Ann Hirsch, Milton Herzog, Marion Kaplan, Abraham Kranitz, Frank Liederman, Ruth Levinson, Isaac Levy, Lois Levy, Marshall Linder, Bessie Michaels, Elsie Myers, Marvin Palanker, Sidel Perlman, Ira L. Posner, Reverend Elijah Revo, Esther Robinson, Mildred Saturin, Nettie Spector, Helene Shapiro, William Shapiro, Barbara A. Simon, Blanche Sabatnik, Abraham Sugar, Francis Takiff, Anna Tatuski, Kenneset Whitcomb, and Thomas Wisniewski.
We remember those who died but recently and for whom their families are observing the period of Shloshim: Michelle Agostinelli, Andrew Cahill, M. Stephen Piver, MD, Herb Siegel, Linda Beth Silman, and for those whose families are observing their yortzites: Ruth Abramo, Arthur Ball, Dora Benderson, Golda A. Berger, Louis R. Bluestein, Melbourne L. Bristol, Maxwell Brown, Lillian Carroll, Julia Beck Cohen, Sarah Berman Davis, Joseph N. Desmond, Marilyn Jane Etlinger, Chester M. Vogel, Max Goldberg, Henry Goldstein, Morris Greenberg, Sarah Gutman, Edward G. Hochstetter, Tilly A. Horowitz, Ricky Cohn, Harry Kurzman, Harry A. Loffer, Isidore D. Levitsky, Milton Levy, Selma Mallon, Etta Markell, Julius Mayer Jr., Nettie Morris, Isidore Morrison, Solomon Morrison, Marvin D. Mossman, Camille Fleischman-Niefach, J. Lawrence Osborne, Sarah Pack, Ethel Podolin, Irving Richmond, Esther Sina Sull, Louis Troyan, Mildred Wallens, Dr. Paul L. Weinman, Julius Settel Wolfson, and Sarah Wright.
We'll rise together for the Mourner's Kaddish on page 598. Yitkadal, v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, v'yalma divrach irte, v'yamlik malchute, v'chayechon, v'yamachon, v'chayed achol beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kariv v'yamru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach li'olam u'me'al maya. Yitbarak, v'yishtabak, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitramam, v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shemei dekudesha, b'richu. Le'lam min kol berchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechamata, damiran b'alma v'yimaru, amen. Yehi shlam rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'yimaru, amen. Oseh shalom b'imramav, Hu Yaseh Shalom, Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol Yoshvei Tevel, v'yimaru, amen. May all of the people that we're thinking about, may their souls be for a blessing, zikronam levracha, and may our world find peace. And we say, amen. So, you may be seated. again, on behalf of Congregation Shir Shalom, we're really blessed to host. We're so delighted to have the Temple Beth Zion and Temple Beth El and Chavarah, Congregation Chavarah with us, as long as everyone is participating in person as well as online virtually. Again, a hearty farewell to Rabbi Sobel. We are so blessed to have her wonderful and meaningful words today. I know they'll stay with me and with others as well. And we wish her nothing but mazel on the next step of her journey. For all of us, we hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful eve and that we enjoy life in the way that all those who brought us life would want us to. We are going to move to the conclusion, and we'll leave it up to Cantor. On 583, we remember them.
Sure.
Unfortunately, because it's a Sunday and we share our cantor with the Methodist Church down on Harlem Road. My friend Dalvin is, our organist is over there. But we have cantor a cappella.
In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, in the blueness of the sky and the warmth of summer, we remember them. We remember them. In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. In the beginning of the year, and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, when we are lost and sick at heart, when we have joys we yearn to share, we are there, we are there. For as long as we live, they too shall live, as we remember them. For they are now a part of us, as we remember them, as we remember them.
As you came in peace, may you leave in peace. Please return your prayer books to the card outside, minus the leaflet. We're very appreciative of your presence here. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, we'll be in touch.